this is Cath King, the plant-based nutritionist at Seeking Health, and today I'd like to talk to you about eating disorders and answer the question, does veganism cause eating disorders? And there was a story on the news on TV1 way back on the 17th of March which linked veganism to eating disorders and told us that teens were using veganism to restrict food intake and implied that veganism is a fad diet. And then today I read on Stuff, a reporter by the name of Sarah Catherall wrote an article based on the experiences of one woman called Rachel and her treatment with Wellington dietitian Sarah Elliott for orthorexia because she was obsessed with clean eating and was only consuming green smoothies, raw vegetables, nut butters and grains like quinoa and red, black or brown rice. And in the article it's implied that her avoidance of red meat was an issue. And then in the same article another person is described as being orthorexic because she wouldn't eat anything that came from a packet. She was scared of processed food and would only eat a whole food diet, which in many ways to me sounds perfectly sensible. But I don't want to belittle eating disorders because they are very real and they're very serious and people suffer from them in very serious ways with their health and their well-being. But the problem is that many experts believe that vegan diets and other types of vegetarian diets can increase the risk of eating disorders. Some treatment centres consider the reintroduction of meat a necessary part of recovery. And these beliefs are based on data that was released between 1997 and 2009 that reported significantly higher rates of disturbed eating attitudes and behaviours, restrained eating and disordered eating among vegetarians compared to non-vegetarians. And according to that data, approximately 50% of adolescents and young women with anorexia nervosa eat some form of vegetarian diet, whereas only 6 to 34% of their non-anorexic peers in the general population eat a vegetarian diet. So, although one might logically conclude that vegetarian diets cause eating disorders, evidence actually indicates that vegetarian diets are typically adopted after the onset and simply mask eating disorders. In other words, vegetarian diets are used as a means to facilitate calorie restriction and legitimize the removal of high-fat, high-calorie animal products and processed or fast foods made with these products. And one research team quite appropriately labelled this phenomenon pseudo-vegetarianism. Now, this isn't to say that vegetarians can't develop eating disorders or that people with eating disorders won't decide to become bona fide vegetarians while they're ill. So both of those possibilities exist. However, true vegetarians can typically be distinguished by their motivation. There was a 2013 study of 160 women. 93 had eating disorders and 67 didn't and were the control. And these women they examined the motivation for becoming vegetarian in those who were vegetarian or who had ever been vegetarian. And almost half the participants with a history of eating disorders cited weight concerns as a primary motivation for becoming vegetarian, whereas in the control group, none of the participants became vegetarian as a result of concerns about body weight. And in 2012, There were also 2 research papers which provided really valuable insights into the supposed link between vegetarianism and eating disorders. And the first paper reported that vegetarians and pesco-vegetarians weren't more restrained in their eating patterns than omnivores. However, semi-vegetarians, so that's no red meat consumption, and flexitarians, which are occasional meat consumption, were significantly more restrained than omnivores or vegetarians. And in addition, the fewer animal products the vegetarians ate, so in other words, the more vegan they became, the less likely they were to exhibit signs of disordered eating. And the authors noted that while the semi-vegetarians and flexitarians were motivated by weight concerns, vegetarians and vegans were motivated by ethical concerns, and I would also add these days health concerns as well. And then the second paper, which actually included 2 separate studies, carefully separated true vegetarians and vegans from semi-vegetarians and omnivores, and the findings added to the evidence suggesting that semi-vegetarians are at greater risk for disordered eating than omnivores or vegetarians. And the investigators found that vegans had the healthiest scores of all dietary groups, and they actually speculated that vegan diets may actually be protective against developing eating disorders. And so although these are preliminary findings, they do very effectively challenge conventional thinking, and also the conclusion really makes sense given the other directedness of vegans, so their concern for animals and the environment and their health, as opposed to the inner directed nature of eating disorders. But unfortunately, media reports like those I mentioned at the beginning of this video suggest that being vegan is a trigger for eating disorders. However, whether someone has an eating disorder isn't determined by things like body weight, gender, or dietary pattern, but it's rather a state of mind. And because of this kind of irresponsible reporting, where the real findings of research that I've described to you, where they haven't been taken into account, instead the authors or the reporters, rather than using research-based studies, they are using what's called a logical fallacy as the basis of their argument. And the one that is being used in the 2 stories that I told you about at the beginning is actually called post hoc ergo propter hoc, and that's Latin for after this, therefore, because of this, which relies on a faulty cause and effect, so more of a coincidental correlation without causation. And so because of this kind of irresponsible reporting, a diet that has the potential to save so many people's lives and improve their health and well-being, and to save so many animals' lives, and to save our planet, to save our environment, has been maligned. And so I couldn't let that go unchallenged. But that's all I really have to say on my point of view today. And thank you very much for watching. And I really encourage you to like and share this video with anyone who you think might benefit. And if you're interested in more information about vegan diets, plant-based diets, or health, nutrition, please subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time.